morning, everyone. This is our May session of the Augmented Society Network. It is My Name in Your Hand, and it is an ASN project spotlight. We are very pleased to welcome Sawyer Rose this morning and Angela Williams virtually, who will be taking you through the project that they are working on as part of our creativity project, but equally working on from their own perspective as professional artists. I'm going to just introduce you now to Sawyer, and she will take over. The session this morning, just to let you know, is runtime 1 hour. We will have Q&A, but Sawyer will take you through the project, and an exciting one it is indeed. So I'm going to introduce you to Sawyer Rose. Sawyer is a sculptor, installation and social practice artist. Throughout her career, she has used her artwork to shine a spotlight on contemporary social issues. Sawyer is a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, a member of the Royal Society of Sculptors, and a member of the Sculptors Guild in New York. Her work has been published in the New York Times, Miss Magazine, and Bust Magazine. I'm also going to introduce you to Angela Williams Bickham. She is a poet and independent researcher. She earned her BA in English Literature from the University of Virginia, her MFA in Creative Writing from the University of Notre Dame, and her MA in American Studies from the College of William and Mary. She has published poetry and essays in journals such as Obsidian, The Black Scholar, and the Journal of African Travel Writing. I'm now going to hand you over to Sawyer, who is going to take us through her incredible project. Sawyer, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen so you can start to see the presentation. And yeah, so thank you for having me here today. Excuse me. We are really excited to unveil this project. Finally, it's still very much a work in progress, but we're happy to share with you like our inspiration and our research. It is called With My Name in Your Hand for the Free Women of Color Who Lived. And as Zoe noted, my collaborator, Angela Williams Bickham, can't join us for the talk today. Unfortunately, she has a family matter to take care of. But don't worry, because she has sent us a super interesting video of her part of things. And so we're still in good hands. So for a little historical background, free people of color were people of African descent living outside the bonds of slavery during the pre-Civil War period in the United States. I know that's a mouthful, but it's also called the antebellum period. And they were a diverse and dynamic segment of society that many people haven't had a chance to learn much about, so that, as historians and artists, that idea kind of lit us up. So free people of color lived both in the free northern states and in the South, where slavery was legal at the time. But in terms of focus on this project, Angela and I have decided to work with historical data only from the slaveholding southern states. And additionally, we have decided to only study free women of color in particular, because interestingly, they played really strong matriarchal roles in their families. They were much more likely than white women of their time to be the head of the household, to be the breadwinner, to be have the name on the deed to the house, to sponsor apprenticeships for their family, all things that, at the time would have been considered stereotypical male roles. These women were doing these jobs. So the goals then of the With My Name in Your Hand project are to raise awareness about this super interesting and understudied demographic, and also to memorialize the lives of these free Black women creatively through large-scale sculpture, which is my department, and historical fiction as poetry, which is Angela's, I'm going to close this talk with her beautiful poem that gave this project its name, so you can look forward to that. But basically what we're doing is we're taking this dry data from the pages of history. So the names of these women, their jobs, even just the number of people, if that's all the historical record has preserved, and recreating a presence for these women who lived and deserve to be remembered. Okay, so I'm going to play the video that Angela sent and let her walk us through this how the collaborative project came to be, as well as giving you some more historical background of free women of color in the antebellum South. She did want me to share a couple of notes with you before I play the video. One, you will notice that she calls me Katie in the video. That is actually my first name, Catherine. Sawyer's my middle name, but Angela and I have known each other since high school, since we were teenagers together in North Carolina. So, you know, just enjoy this blast from the past. No one but my mama calls me that anymore. And at one point, she says boundaries of the free South, when of course she meant to say boundaries of the slaveholding South. So I guess see if you hear it, there will be a quiz. Okay, so let's hear from Angela.
Hello, my name is Angela Williams Bickham, and I have been working with Katie on our art installation for, I guess it's about a
Can you hear? I can't hear.
I think because you've muted, Sawyer.
say a profession, because that's not what I am a
My
writer.
apologies.
Could you restart?
An independent
Absolutely.
historian.
That'd be great.
Hello, my name is Angela Williams Bickham, and I have been working with Katie on our art installation for, I guess it's about a year now or so. But I was asked to say a bit about how it all started. So I am a writer. I am an independent historian. I do this, I believe, for me more so than for, say, a profession, because that's not what I do for my day-to-day living. But I do have my Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from the University of Notre Dame. And I also have my master's degree in American Studies, where I merged the study of African American history, American history, public history, and African American literature in order to look at the concept of free people of color, specifically those who were self-freed and they ran away to, say, the woods or other parts of the slaveholding South. Didn't go to the quote unquote free North, but they stayed within the boundaries of the free South. So in my writings, throughout my whole time of writing, I've always been looking for ways to give people of color, namely women of color, voice that they may not have had within literature, within history, but did exist because we all exist. So that has been my whole impetus. I have told my Masters of Fine Arts cohort that that's the only thing I can successfully write about. It seems to be. It's history and looking into the past in order to give contemporary voice so that more people can possibly say, let me find out a little bit more about it, or I never thought about it that way. So my work has been published in various places. I actually have a few short plays that I have had performed in Charlotte, North Carolina, as well as in published in various places. So with this particular project, I had been looking at free people of color who lived in the South and whose names showed up in city directories in the 1800s. whether they in the directories were segregated to the back of the book or whether they were part of the directory itself, and had monikers that would say free Negro or free man of color or free woman of color. And I started keeping all these lists of names and names and names and professions and more names and names. And although I may not be the typical historian that can tell you how many people lived in a demographic area, from here to here, from this month to this month to this year to this year, I knew that I had an obligation to find out more about the people who lived, as I guess they would say, on an anecdotal level or on an individual level. In all of that, searching within various city directories, I also came across Carter G. Woodson's 1830 study. I'm sorry, Carter G. Woodson's study of the 1830s federal census, where he and his team pulled out every single name of a free person of color who lived within the United States. And it broke it down by state. And then it broke it down by county and or city. And I wanted to figure out ways of presenting this in various forms, from poetry to maybe writing a short story. But then I was like, how can it be looked at visually? And I knew I wasn't the visual artist. And I had been fangirling Katie's work at that time. And I went to a number of different artists to say, hey, this is what I'm interested in. Are you interested in collaborating? And when I finally was able to talk to Katie, she started thinking of like, wow, that's interesting, because she was already doing these wonderful installations with lots of data sets. And so she found my data set to be inspiring and interesting. And she and I started thinking about how those can be meshed together, the names on the page, the actual lives that these women, they were both men and women, but we decided to look at just the women who lived in the slave-holding South, and started thinking about the visualization of that kind of information, those names in particular. And we came up with names for looking at the professions and looking at the images that would have been surrounding those women as they lived. Carter G. Woodson, in his compilation book, actually said that this study of free people of color in the United States was underrepresented in the historical record. And I know that caught my attention, and I was able to feel that these women that we decided to look for were ready to have their names put out there. And if that, in that way, through this art, if that sparks more interest in some kind of historical investigation of some kind, because there have been some, but maybe I still believe not enough, because they're always talked about, the free people of color, I believe, in the United States are always talked about as some kind of other group, not just the fact they are Americans within the United States that also have a history that should be told. So in doing that research and talking to Katie about how to represent people within art, and the ideas of the lives of people within art, this is how our project came together. So I continuously search the 1830 census, which just through Carter G. Woodson and his compilation, and I searched for the names of that are marked as female. or if they don't have a marking as female, a female name that we in the a name in what we would say in the United States may be traditionally called female. I may have pulled that out for Katie to represent. And then we have used city directories and other forms of research in order to get professions. So in the piece, you will see names, and you will see professions, or what people we have found in our own research that they have been called, from very loving names to not so loving names, to things that you want to hear, to words that you never want to say if you are of a certain mindset. So you'll also find blanks within the naming plaques that Katie has created, because there are so many more women that we did not represent. In the 1830 compilation, or the compilation of the 1830 census, we're looking at heads of families only. In that 1830 census, the census takers did not write down the names of every single person living within the house. They wrote down the names of the heads of the family. If there was more than one person in the house, there was the heads of the family. But if only one person was living in the house, it was that person's name. So we're looking at women who were responsible, who call themselves responsible for their own household, whether it's 15 people, 10 people, 2 people, 1 person, they are responsible. And so, and thus they are responsible for themselves and maybe others around them, and in order to live their whole life. And when I say whole, I don't mean lifespan, I mean just living in general. And so you'll hear lots of that in the poem that I have written for this work, as well as hopefully you will see the honor we are working to bestow upon the women, as well as showing what other people have said about them, other people being the people they're offering their services to, whether it is their profession, or other people as in their children calling them mother, or other people as in someone against their life is calling them a name that you would not like to be called. So then Katie can talk about how she came up with what these naming plaques are resting on. But all in all, we want these names in your hand. And with these names in your hand, you decide what you do with it. I choose, when put these names in my hand, to honor the women. And in knowing that they lived, it helps me live. And that's the project. And we hope that you enjoy, are inspired by, and are compelled to stand with the piece and find as many names as you can, and know that the women lived.
So yeah, all right. So that's pretty great. It gives you a lot of insight into the fascinating research work that Angela has done and how the two of us came to be collaborators on this project. She does talk briefly about my visual arts background and how I came to the project, and the project work I've been doing before with my name in your hand, and I'd love to expand on that just a little bit. So for the past 7 years or so, I've been working on a project of large-scale sculptures called the Carrying Stones Project. And the Carrying Stones Project combines data and visual art, again, to talk about gendered work inequity that contemporary women face. So like in the workplace and home, whatever. And my goal with the Carrying Stones Project is to make these women's invisible lives visible, right? To take this boring economic data, in this case, time use data, give it a human face, and hopefully create some understanding with people who aren't familiar with the topic. All right, so I think you can understand why I was excited to team up with Angela on this new project, with My Name in Your Hand, is also about taking data and making women's lives visible in a way that's more digestible, more relatable, but in a historical context this time. All right, so let me show you what we've done. You can see the slides changing, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So Angela told us how she compiled her data set of names from Carter G. Woodson's work and the U.S. Federal Census in 1830. So first of all, why 1830? Well, first of all, as you can see, the records existed for us to do the study, so that's important. But also 1830 marked the population high point for free people of color in the United States. So it's a really interesting period to look at. You know, everything after that was sort of like the downslide to the Civil War. And Angela also told us about how the list of names is incomplete, and many of these women's names have been lost to history. So, and we wanted those women to have plaques as well. But then, you know, the questions on my end were like, okay, so how many plaques and what did they say? And how do we figure out, you know, what we're supposed to be doing? Well, okay, so starting with North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, with the rest of the southern states coming soon, we first found the total number of free people of color in each state in 1830. That's the first line. And then we searched the approximate percentage of free women versus free men to see how many non-name plaques we should make. That's the second line, right? So there were likely more free women than men in these states at the time for complicated reasons I'm happy to explain in the Q&A. But like, how many more women? So our best estimate based on both historical records and knowledge of what was going on in the time was that we should like split the total number 50-50-ish and then round up for the women, for the free women of color. So you see that line 2. And then line 3, we subtract the number of actual names we have, which leaves us with line 4, the number of non-name plaques we're supposed to build, right? So are you all completely asleep yet? Right, that's
No.
super boring. It's super boring. It doesn't tell you anything about these women's lives. You know, we had to do the arithmetic, but I think it's becoming obvious why the data needs to be transformed creatively into something that our human brains can digest and learn from, because this isn't it, right? So now that we've done our arithmetic, we had our numbers, and we dug into what Angela and I are calling the monikers to fill the spaces. And again, there was some arithmetic we had to do. So if we didn't have a woman's name, for example, we could possibly know the relative frequency of job titles held by free women of color, right? So you see how it's listed out here. This is a city directory. You know, you've got baker, dressmaker, washer, like there'd be a lot of those. Ladies doctoress, there would not be a lot of those. So, you know, I did some arithmetic to figure out how many times a particular job should be represented. And then there was like daughter, mother, sister, wife, aunt. Every woman is at least one of those. You have to be daughter of someone. So Angela made a list of every single word she could find that referenced a free woman of color, where their existence is preserved in some way in a historical record. And like she said, some are funny and some are offensive, and most of them are just an imprint of daily lives lived. So we mostly filled up the non-name spaces with the monikers. But then, as she was saying, we decided we need to leave some plaques blank to honor the fact that these numbers are not and could never be exact, and that they were definitely women out there living their lives that we don't know what they were doing and we could never know. But we wanted to memorialize them anyway. So now that we had the naming concept sorted, the question was, what was I going to do with them? You know, because now we're on to my department. What am I going to do with them? What is the most meaningful way to display them? And so what I decided to do was to bring the research to life through a series of installation-size tapestries that reference the material culture that would have surrounded these women in 1830. So this one that you're looking at is a panel from the Tennessee tapestry. And in deciding how to build the tapestries, I researched like period fabrics, period dyes. So the tapestries of these three states, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, are made of linen and cotton because those were their main textile crops. And also, for example, this is from the South Carolina tapestry. The South Carolina panels are dyed in shades of indigo because indigo was a big money crop for the state, that was made into these beautiful blue dyes, right? And then there's the patterns. So I had to decide what pattern everything was going to take. And, you know, it's like I really could have chosen to do anything, but what I did decide to do was the pattern of the naming plaques on the panel, as well as the pattern of the applique in the background. I've abstracted common fabric patterns from both American and African sources. So for the American, it's popular American quilting patterns and overshot weaving patterns, which all of these women would have been familiar with, as well as fabric patterns from the West African countries where most North American enslaved people or their ancestors were taken from. And then finally, I did add one Cherokee pattern and one Shawnee Native American pattern, because Native Americans were sometimes included as people of color in the census. So I wanted to just, like, you know, call that out. And then I think most importantly, what I've done is I've overlapped them. I've overlaid them. So one very important understanding that Angela shared with me, like, over and over again, was that when you're talking about free women of color, nothing is simple. So in this case, like, some of these women may have embraced being American and, like, totally wanted to blend in. And some of them may have looked more toward their African roots and not wanted to assimilate into this culture that was keeping them prisoner. And many of these women may have felt somewhere in between. Right. So I've built these panels to try to honor all those paths. So if the arrangement of, like, the naming plaques on top references an African pattern, then the applique behind it will reference an American pattern and vice versa. So here you can see my schematic versions of the different pattern color combinations. This is sort of like a little thumbnail of what they're going to look like when they're big. This is South Carolina and Tennessee. North Carolina is even huger and, like, doesn't fit on the screen. So I just showed you these two. The tapestries are modular and each panel is 18 inches square. So, like, you know, these pieces are massive. And the reason I did it this way is because we'll have a lot of flexibility in how we install them. So, like, they could be installed as wall works, like wall tapestry, or they could be suspended in groups from the ceiling. And the reason I did this because since our project goals are to raise awareness and to educate and to memorialize, like, the more eyeballs we get on the project, the better. And what I've learned over my many years as a sculptor is that flexible installation means that you can get more venues to join you in presenting the work. And that's what gets this job done, right? And so finally, design-wise, the plaques themselves, I played with a lot of ideas for the design and building of these because there are actually, like, a number of logistical considerations sculpture-wise. You saw the numbers, right? So since I had to make so many of them, I had to find materials and processes that were both quick and affordable. I had to be able to pay for this. They had to be lightweight and non-breakable for shipping. So it's like I thought about doing them as ceramic and I was like, oh God, no, that doesn't work on so many levels. So these are things I always have to think about when I'm building a large scale sculpture. These are things I was used to thinking about. And where I arrived was to cut each of these naming plaques on a laser cutter and then, like, deep engrave the name. And now what I'm doing, I'm in the process of painting them to look like pearlware or whiteware ceramics that would have been super common in the South in the mid to, you know, early to mid 1800s. So free people of color would have had these sorts of dishes in their home, and as would have white people. Like, they were totally ubiquitous. The font I've chosen is based on the printing of an 1800s broadsheet, a printed broadsheet. And the shapes I've chosen for the naming plaques are sourced from 19th century nameplates, like on businesses or like on framed artworks, like you can still see in a museum today. So just in general, in designing all the parts of the tapestry, there was no detail too small for me to at least like try to replicate it if I could, or at least reference the material culture of the period. So I think that gives you a pretty good overview of the whys and hows of With My Name in Your Hand project. We can't wait to show you the complete finished product. And anyway, now I'll wrap it up with Angela reading her beautiful poem that gave this project its name. Hopefully, when we present the project live in its entirety, literary readings like this will also be a part of the programming as well. So adding voice to the data and the visuals as we work to resurface the lives of these women. So, 2-minute poem.
With my name in your hand, for the free women of color who lived, I stand in need of a naming plaque, a thing, a recognition, a thing on which to lay my name in your hand, now woven in for you to accept, my name still surviving as it always has. I resist the urge to see me broken into pieces and nameless, all preconceptually desired and defined. I am no thing, I am not this plaque. It carries my moniker only in part, a part of which you still see. I am my name. I, my friend, my fiend, my child, lived a whole life. Lived, and even the wind wrapped itself around my flesh on its way north, south, east, and west. Give me now my naming plaque, or maybe I should say, I give you now my naming plaque. Carry me in your hand like stones. Find me within the fibers. Let my edges sear you. Let my name heal you. Let me bind my name into your fingertips, button your brow, and know that I existed. I exist. You exist. We live as we exist. We name ourselves. Let my attempt to convince you stop. I had no master. I named myself. Even now, you are the census taker. You are asking me my name, not the reverse. If you must see me as you see yourself, see me in your name, see me in your threads, see me in your daily bread, feel me in the wind.
That was brilliant.
Wow.
It's brilliant.
Wow.
Pretty beautiful.
Oh. Inspired. Wow.
So thank you. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. As you can see, there's gonna be much more, and it's gonna be very big and multifaceted.
You can feel the profound. You can feel this profound feeling. It's when we are attached to sacred feelings that we make great things. Yes, I just wanted to ask a question because I have my personal understanding of the black people situation because I'm African. I know it is historical. I take it on an historical approach. Maybe people who live abroad take it on a political approach, but in my country, we don't have political problems related to Africa because we are African already, so no difference. But I just wanted to say that when we take a historical approach, it's not the same as we take our days. If African people have a problem in expression of arts, if it does exist in some place or in some case or in some situation, we can take this approach and apply it. And yes, we can say that all the people have their rights in expression in their arts as the way they feel in it. So can we say that it is an approach of arts in a human rights situation? And we can gather all the situations we don't have a correct approach to freedom and say, yes, the African people in this problem, if they face this problem, are similar like to people in some prisons in some ways in some parts of the world, that they lack freedom and they maltreated. So we can treat them better, we can let them express their feelings better, or children in some situations. Or so can we say that all the situations where we lack freedom are good situation when we apply this approach to arts? So I'm more like in a general understanding of the concepts. Even if I know this is the concept is very advanced, I see it's very well done, very well
Thank you.
proposed and structured. It's very good, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, and yeah, anytime there's social injustice and you're having to explain the lived experience of somebody, you know, that you maybe you don't know anything about, this approach is, I think, valuable. You know, it's what I'm doing. I'm doing it contemporarily, you know, about women's labor issues. This is historical, but yeah, I think that anytime that somebody is, you know, it's hard for us to step out of our lives and into somebody else's lives to really understand what's going on. Maybe we can never really understand what's going on, but, you know, we can make an effort and get closer. You know, for me, it's through creativity is the way that I build those bridges.
It was interesting because Angela used the word obligation. We have an obligation, and we have an obligation to find out and to learn. And that's how we improve ourselves and how we influence positively other people around us. So we do have an obligation. That really, really stuck with me. Obligation.
Obligation.
And the poetry is beautiful.
I mean, I just wanted to chime in. I'm actually new to RSA, very new, as in less than a month. But I'm so glad that I attended this because I'm in California. I'm from Washington D.C. I frequented the Smithsonian National African American Museum several times because I go back to visit DC quite often. My college professor from my college days founded the Great Blacks in Wax Museum in Baltimore. And we've made a point in our household to teach African American history to our children from when they were in kindergarten, now they're teenagers. So they knew about Black Wall Street and all of those things when they were like in the first grade. But, you know, I'm really fascinated by this because the reason why I'm saying all of that is this is the first time that I've seen the focus on your project entails. And that's why I'm so fascinated by it, because I think that I like the word invisible because it has been invisible even within African American historical circles. This is a key piece of history that is really missing, and it's a beautiful project. And so my question is, long term, once everything is finalized, how can we help you? What can we do to make sure this project is known, to make sure that it's included in these museums and even maybe some of the curriculum? What can we do to help you?
Thank you for that. Thank you for all of that. And for thinking of how to give this project legs. I really do feel like this project has legs. Everyone I tell what we're doing, you know, from, you know, like white people, Black people, scholars, non-scholars, like, I have never thought about that. I did not even realize that was a thing. And I'm like I said, like, ooh, you know, you get that little historical spidey like tingle, like, whoa, I've found a niche that people need to hear about. And, you know, I kind of only just touched on this, but it is a broadly diverse category of people, like in terms of where they were, what they were doing, how much money they had. There were even like like free people of color who were plantation owners who enslaved people of their own, like, and then there was tons of washerwomen. You know, it's like it's a hugely diverse group of people. And you know, while there has been some literature, there's no like real great literature. I don't know if you've ever read the Ira Berlin. And like, yeah, so like the one like main book about this topic is amazing scholarship, but it was written in the 70s. It's not great. It like looks at things in ways that we would not look at them these days. So like there really is like a chance to do some work here. In terms of what anybody could do to help us, certainly. So the Carrying Stones project that I discussed is a traveling exhibition. So I already kind of know how to like package this up and make it into something that can travel the country, that can travel the world, because I'm doing that right now with my other. So I guess like introductions to like, if you know somebody, like big, small, museum, community center, doesn't matter. It's about eyeballs. Like introductions to people who might want to see this work. Ideas for programming, because you know what I've found is that you know, institutions love it when you come and you're like, I've got the work, but I've got the programming all set up too. We're going to do like a literary event, we're going to do this, we're going to do a hands-on, we're going to do a workshop, whatever. You know, any ideas of like what you would want to see, how you would want to interact with this piece, how you feel like you could learn from this piece, like taking all comers on that. Yeah.
And we're also,
one day, I'm poor, I'm an artist.
Money. But we're also going to be showing a piece, at least one piece in London in November at RSA House. So there is, at the moment, it's about a week-long exhibition with an event at the beginning where there will be other artists involved as well. But this piece is such a wonderful piece of work. So we're talking to RSA House in London at the moment about the logistics for that. And we have 12 other projects, Julie, of other
and
artists,
growing.
yeah, who are involved in our creativity project. So if you can get people involved with that as well, that would be phenomenal.
And I think one thing that doesn't really come across in this presentation, since it's still very much a work in progress, is the sheer scale of it when it's going to be all put together. Like I said, the North Carolina one was too big even to put the schematic on the screen. And they can be arranged in like layers or hanging. And Angela had this great idea based on the poem that we could like have fans in the corners and they're kind of blowing, like the names are, but like you could do so much with it. It's real flexible. So like what would be shown at RSA would be like a little snippet of one of them, you know, like maybe one of these 18-inch panels, but the whole thing just like cascades down like a scroll. And it really gives you a sense of the size of this demographic that you didn't know even existed. So it's going to be exciting to see it all together.
There's a massive audio role, I think, in this as well, Sawyer, that would be just an incredible read of those names to go with that.
And we want to do a catalog, you know, because me as an artist, I always want to do a catalog. But we wanted to like in the back of the catalog have like a map of the names, like in a list, so that you could like go like, oh, that's my family name, or that's like, I did my whole ancestry because my grandmother's side was Freeman, and I was like, oh, it didn't work out that way. We're a different sort of Freeman, I guess, but it was interesting to go like, I don't know, where do I fit in all this? Nowhere, maybe, but I found a lot of other interesting things about the family. So yeah, it's like just to have like the list all listed out, and maybe like a little like legend where you can find that name and you're like, that's my grandma's name, or you know, somebody back in my family was this. So we want to connect it, like bring it into the personal as much as we can.
I just think it's the most wonderful journey to be there, seeing, oh wow, watching this develop. I'm in awe, and I'm so thrilled we've got to know you and watching how this develop. It's just wonderful. Really,
Thank you
really,
so
truly
much.
oh, it's just wonderful.
Yes.
Absolutely love it.
It's been a giant like nerd out. I've enjoyed it so much. Like the material culture research. And I'm like studying like dyes. And then I actually like went on Etsy and had like some like these like lovely hippies who like do like natural dye. I'm like, do you have indigo? Do you have? They're like, yeah, sure, we got you. So like really like tried to like really drill down on like I would love to think that if these people from 1830 saw this, they would have some familiarity with what it looks like. Like it would seem, as much as I can do from, you know, the 21st century, feel like home to them a little bit.
Anyone not asked a question who's wanting to ask or make a comment, please feel free. We've got 10 minutes left.
I just think
just an idea. Just 2 minutes. I have just a small idea. What if we try someday? Someday, if we can. What if we try to do like every white person considers himself black and try to paint something, and every black person imagine himself as a white person and draw or paint something, and we see how do we see each other in arts. How do I see black people in arts and how black people see us in arts? And you can understand very easily the differences. Maybe they are big, maybe they are small, maybe we are the same. It's just arts, but maybe there are big misunderstandings between ourselves and our feelings. Maybe we can locate the key feature of this problem.
Yeah. You know, when I'm doing my research, I guess I'd just like to add that I try to be real careful about what I can talk about knowledgeably and what I cannot talk about knowledgeably. So with my Carrying Stones project, for example, like, I mean, my women are from all the like different races, ethnicities, like social, economic, whatever, but they're all American because I feel like I have, you know, I can't speak to the lives of working women in India. Like, I don't know. I don't, you know. Um, and that's why I was thrilled to work with Angela on this because she has that historical knowledge. She has studied it. She lives as a Black woman in the United States, you know, contemporary. I don't. So it was both really educational to me and made it so that I felt like I could understand it well enough to talk about it. But yeah, like I don't feel like I want to like dive into like unless I can like get in front of the person, which is what I do, you know. I couldn't get in front of these people. They're from the 1830s. But what I do contemporarily is like to build that bridge between you know, between myself and this person that's different than me. You know, we get in front of each other, we talk to each other, we, you know, so there's a lot of that. But it was interesting finding a way to work and a way to work with research, and it's historical and it's partial, that was challenging, but I feel like now I know enough that I can share. So hi Nicole, hi Teresa, it's my peeps.
Anyone else got any questions that they'd like to ask or comments they'd like to make?
I just want to say, yeah, this is Nicole. Hi.
Hi.
Also it was super, super sweet to hear you being referred to as Katie. Is so sweet. It just like it speaks to like the deep, deep sisterhood, and I love that. But also, yeah, this is so beautiful. Thank you for hosting this and collaborating on this. Yeah, I think it just says a lot to like the importance of honoring these women, and I love that art is being used as a tool to do that, and so thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Nicole. Good to see you.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Teresa, for your comment.
Dawn, sorry.
No, nothing. I was just moving.
Yeah.
But thank you. It's brilliant.
I'll say there's a message from Teresa. Teresa, she said, this is very meaningful and the work is beautiful. So thank you, Teresa, for your comment.
Agree. So I think we'll wrap up there. What I just want to say thank you to you both. That was an extraordinary presentation. We're very, very excited to also have this as part of our creativity, gives us a new formula for life, which we now have something like 15 thinkers, artists, and people involved with. Our next session, which is on the 15th of June, is actually a project discovery session. So you will hopefully meet Sawyer again. Rashida, who's on the call here as well, is working on a project which is absolutely phenomenal in its own right as well, in terms of her approach to costume from a traditional sense rendered in modern materials. We have many projects underway. So if you would like to get involved, please just email us on the email that you received about the event this morning, or was it probably yesterday? Please get in touch. The next event is the 15th of June at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. UK, and so on. So please do join us for that and find out more about the project as a whole. We expect to have our exhibition around November, with the main location being RSA House in London, but with satellite exhibitions too, and also an event which RSA will be hosting in London, and we hope simultaneously. This month rather, our South American project manager, Carlos, couldn't be with us, and our other East Coast project manager couldn't be with us either. But they're working on some extraordinary stuff in relation to using science fiction to help to define ideas and design. So please join us again. I'm a bit blown away at the moment, Sawyer, on this one. I don't know what to say.
It's amazing.
We will also make this recording available, so please join us again. Thank you very much. And unless there's other questions.
And just to add, new people that have joined, if you want to participate in our creativity project, you're more than welcome. Very welcome.
Yeah, and Sawyer said, yeah, she's going to contact a lot of her people too. So we'd like to grow that involvement. Yeah, thanks, Julie.
And I thought it was important, Zoe, what you told me earlier, that it can just be a little thing. It doesn't have to be this year-long extravaganza that we decided to do. You can participate in a little way, and it's been an amazing project.
Yeah. Really, so exactly. You could literally take a photo of you doing something in a slightly different way, thinking creatively, and we would accept that as part of the project. Do not be blown away by this whole incredible thing, because I'm just thinking, oh my God.
Because on our Notion website where we've got it, I have a section where there are people that are doing small projects with the photos of themselves, descriptions of what they do, and maybe a small video. So we've already got that section created. So a small contribution, a piece of poetry that you might want to write, you know, from photos, your first painting or drawing. I know Rashida's done a painting. She hadn't painted before. So Rashida's painting, as well as a project, I'd love to see it in this section as well. Something that you're doing for the first time, even if it's small, it's that new experience. We'd love to hear about it. Yeah.
And we're also working with some VR people to present this in virtual reality and globally as well. So yeah, nothing much to do, Julie.
Nothing.
Don't want to keep them busy.
Cool. You see the grey hairs. They're hidden.
Okay, I will sign us off then. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again, hopefully in June. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye.